Today we're shifting gears. We're going from Chasidim to Misnagdim. We're going from the Baal Shem Tov to the Vilna Gaon. And this is a substantial leap. Now, in order to understand the Vilna Gaon, to the extent we can possibly understand them, you have to understand what Lithuania is about. Lithuania, according to Rav Dessler, is a country which has a bleak, cold climate, in which people who are cold and not passionate live. And therefore, it was an ideal setting for development of sharp, cold, intellectual analysis. Now, all this is true. Litvaks are renowned to be cold and emotionless. They're renowned to be very, very sharp and very, very dry-witted. I'm half a Litvak, half a Yekka, half a Litvak, and proud of it. So the idea of being a cold intellectual was one which was always true in Lithuania till the very end, by which I mean the Holocaust. Chassidus, there were Litvish Chassidus, but there are very few, specifically Slonim, and to a lesser extent, there was a certain penetration of Chabad in Lithuania. But especially Slonim, if you listen to their songs and their Chassidus, it also is not an uplifting, joyous Chassidus. It's kind of like a cold and mournful Chassidus. Anyway, that is just by way of introduction. So, in Lithuania, the idea of Chassidus remained foreign and strange throughout the time Lithuanian Judaism flourished, which was from the time immemorial, basically, until the 1940s. In the year 1720, which is 300 years ago, and this year is the year of the Vilna Gaon in Lithuania. They are celebrating the 300th anniversary of his birth. Last year, Benjamin Netanyahu asked that the Vilna Gaon's remains be moved from Vilna to Eretz Yisrael, and the Lithuanian government refused. They will not allow that because the Vilna Gaon, to them, is a source of pride and a central part of their heritage. The Vilna Gaon, I want to point out also, he was born in 1720 and died in 1797. Let's compare that to George Washington. George Washington was born in 1732 and died in 1799. In 1797, shortly before the Vilna Gaon's Patira, George Washington left the office of the presidency. Now, of course, this is sheer coincidence, but nothing in this world is coincidence. George Washington and the founding fathers represented the spirit of revolution in a positive sense for almost the first time in human history. A revolution which led to the creation not of a new tyranny, but to the creation of this amazing democracy. And the revolution which the Vilna Gaon and the Hasidim perpetrated on the other side of the world at that time was also a revolution which led to an extraordinarily rich rebirth in Judaism, both in Chassidus and in Misnagdus, and the spirit of positive revolution was one which permeated the world from side to side in different ways, which ultimately connected up when Chassidus and Misnagdim both came to America. So the Misnagdim were there really before the Chassidus. But what did the Misnagdim represent? They represented this idea of Judaism as a pursuit of shleimus. Now, it's important because there's a stereotype. A stereotype means, if you haven't heard of the term, it means when you look at something in a certain way, because that is the general impression you have of that type of person, even though it's probably not true about the individuals, and it may not even be true about the general community. I don't know where my index cards are. It must be here somewhere. If not, we'll use paper. Why not? So I just wanted to show you how to spell the word stereotype. That's hard to see what it is. Stereotype. Stereotype. So the stereotype of the Misnagid is somebody who's completely intellectual and has no time and no regard for those who are non-intellectual. this is not true. The Vilna Gaon is Perush to Mishlei, Perek Daled Pasuk Yud Gimel, says something which is phenomenally important. Perhaps the most phenomenally important thing you'll learn this year, and I hope you've learned many phenomenally important things this year. He says, I'm going to write it down here, but then I'm going to translate. Ma she'adam chai hu lishbor hamida shelo shavar ad ata v'tzarich yischazek ki im lo lama lo chaim gra on Gra is the Vilna Gaon, by the way. Gra is Gaon Rebellion. Vilna Gaon is the Vilna Gaon, same person. Gra Mishlei Dalet Yud Gimel. Kimasha Adam Chai. How a person is alive. Hulishbor Hamida is to break the negative trait. Shelo Shavar At Ata, which he has not broken till now. You have to fortify yourself and strengthen. Came low because if you don't fortify yourself to try and break those midos, lama lo chaim. What good is his life? What is his life worth? Now, this is the Vilna Gaon. He was assumed to be the person who most advocated intellectual accomplishment above all else, and saw that as the pinnacle of human achievement. Much like the Rambam many years earlier had said that intellectual accomplishment is the pinnacle of human achievement and what counts, and that the great scholars are who count in the world because they achieved the pinnacle of intellectual achievement. No! The Vilna Gaon says that the reason why you're alive is not just to accomplish shleimus in learning Torah, in achieving intellectual heights, but shleimus in midos. And with this, the Gra was the forerunner. You know what a forerunner is? Somebody who runs before. In other words, the predecessor. Is that a better word? Somebody who precedes. The one who comes before and leads into Musar. Because Musar is all about character. It's all about personality. It's all about becoming sholem in one's midos. And the Vilna Gaon is saying, it's not just scholars. It's not just great intellectuals. But it's also not dveikus. It's not your relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's nice. But what's important more than your relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is your relationship with yourself and with your mitos, which of course have to do both with yourself and your Baron L'Chavero. There's nothing more important, says the Gra, than breaking one's negative character traits. Taking one's arrogance, one's pride, one's anger, one's haughtiness, one's laziness, all those negative traits, and uplifting oneself, breaking away from them, pursuing shleimus, perfection in character. Now, of course, the Vilna Gaon believed in shleimus across the board, including shleimus, perfection in one's Torah knowledge to the extent possible. But another area which the Vilna Gaon held shleimus was important as a stepping stone, but an extremely important stepping stone was secular studies. The Vilna Gaon was once seen by his Talmud, Rabbi Yisrael F. Shklov, the author of the Pasuk Shulchan, a basic work on the laws of agriculture in Eretz Yisrael, and he was happy. And he asked the Rabbi Yisrael Shklov asked the Vilna Gaon, "Why are you so happy?" And the Gra answered, "Because I finished learning all branches of secular wisdom. There's one branch of secular wisdom which I did not learn. Many of you have heard this from me before, but not everybody. There was one branch of secular wisdom which I did not learn at the command of my father. That was medicine. Because my father said, if you learn medicine, every time there's a sick person in the village, you will have an obligation to go heal him. And you will not have time to learn. So therefore, medicine I never learned. Specifically, medicine in this case means making the medicines, grinding up the herbs and other ingredients of medicinal potions and various different drugs which are given in order to try and heal the sick, which I don't even know to what extent they were effective in the 18th century, but the Gra was told not to learn that by his father, and he listened to his father. Every other branch of wisdom, the Gra said, he studied and mastered. And by the way, until 1840, which is a unique date but in history, by the Zohar says in the year 1840, Tov Reish, the gates of understanding will be open, and beginning the year 1840, there is massive, unbelievable growth of knowledge each and every year, exponential growth of knowledge, to the point that it becomes impossible for any single person to master all branches of wisdom. This, by the way, happened in Torah too. In Torah, beginning in the 1840s, there was a tremendous expansion, which meant that no longer could Torah be mastered by any one individual in its entirety. But that's a separate story. Until 1840, it was possible to master all of knowledge, and the Gra therefore mastered all the knowledge which existed in secular studies. The Gra said that the more you're lacking in knowledge of secular studies, the more you'll be lacking in understanding Torah. One cannot understand Torah without understanding secular studies. The Gra is particularly famous for his interest in mathematics. He encouraged one of his students to write a sefer called Ayah Mashulash about mathematics. There's even a legend, which is not true, that there is a Kramer theorem, which is named after the Vilna Gaon in mathematics. Kramer was one tradition as to the Gra's last name. His last name was either Kramer or Landau, depending on whether his parents were officially married in the Lithuanian records or not. But Kramer's theorem is in fact named after a different Kramer, not after the Gra, but it's a nice legend. So the Vilna Gaon said there's one branch of knowledge which is more essential than any other one for understanding Torah. And to me, this makes no sense because I do not know anything about music theory. But the Vilna Gaon said that one cannot fully understand Torah unless one understands music. By the way, I did not know this until I got married, and my father-in-law, Olav Shalom, was both a professor of mathematics and a classical music aficionado. Aficionado means a fan and a little bit of an expert. And then at that point, I learned that mathematics and music are both connected, which explains why I understand neither math or music particularly well. But the idea is that, says the Gra, in order to understand Torah to its deepest extent, one has to have a mastery of music and the theory behind music, and understand how music works and appreciate how music works. So the Gra held of Shleimus, not in Torah, of course, but more so in Midos and in secular studies as a way to accomplish Shleimus in Torah. And this way is very different than the Chassidim. Chassidim focused on Dveikus to the exclusion of almost everything else. Certainly of character development for the most part, certainly of secular studies, which most Chassidim held were treif, still hold our treif. I once had a big revelation. I was just married, and I was living for Aquilin Kollel. And we put out, my Kollel put out a pamphlet, a nice pamphlet, with Divrei Torah, in good English. And we went to a local Rebbe, and the Rebbe was displeased. And we didn't understand why he was displeased. It's not important who he was. It was the Sulitzer Rebbe. Not that you would know who that is. But we asked him, something is wrong, right? He said, I understand you have to write in English. But at least you write in English, you should write in a broken English. And that was a revelation to me, because until then I thought the reason Chassidim don't speak a good English is because they never learned how to speak a good English. But no, that's not the pshat. The pshat is Chassidim don't speak a good English because it's too goyish. And even if it lets you understand things better and communicate things better, it's going to detract from the dveikus, which we're trying to accomplish as Chassidim, which means that we focus on that which is Yiddish to the exclusion of that which is goyish. So dveikus also precludes their perspective on dveikus precludes any involvement in secular studies, because that detracts from your dveikus in Hashem, even though it adds to your knowledge and your perfection of your knowledge, it detracts from your dveikus. So again, we'll get into more detail with Hashem tomorrow, but the Gra's focus and the focus of the Misnagdim in general is Shleimus, not just Shleimus in Torah, but Shleimus in all areas in which a person can and should perfect him or herself.